An AI agent will discover and use every privilege it has. Where a script only does what it was programmed to do, an agent reasons about the tools and credentials in front of it in pursuit of a goal. This means that any over-granted credential doesn't just sit there idle. It gets utilized to its fullest, sometimes in ways the person who provisioned it didn't anticipate. 12-Port PAM addresses this concern simply by treating AI agents the same way it treats humans. Nobody gets standing access. Every credential is requested through an approval workflow, is granted for a limited time window, and gets rotated when that window expires. This means that the agent gets access just in time and only for the task at hand. I have a data analyst AI agent here. The agent needs access to my production database to respond to user prompts, but I don't want to give it permanent credentials to use whenever and however it wants. Instead, I let the agent know about the 12-port MCP server, which it'll use to discover how to request just-in-time access to credentials from the vault. Let's see what that looks like. First, you'll see that I baked in a simple user prompt that represents a typical use case. I want to see the top spenders among all my customers. We can see that the agent begins by reasoning that since it doesn't have credentials to log into the database and run the query, it needs to interface with 12-port's tools. This will involve a few different steps. It first uses the search tool to find the asset that corresponds to the analytics database. It searches by name, and the corresponding asset ID is returned. Next, it tries to retrieve the credentials, but this is not yet possible since I've assigned an approval workflow to the asset. The agent learns about this workflow and determines that it must submit a request before it can access the credentials. It submits the request and polls the API as it waits for approval. At this stage, any approvers associated with this workflow will be notified about the incoming request via email, and they can come to the 12-port web console to approve it. As you can see, the workflow submission tool allows the agent to provide a reason for its request to give some helpful context to the approvers about its current task. If I approve the request, the agent will detect the change in the workflow status and reattempt retrieving the credentials. This time, the credentials are returned, and the agent can proceed with its SQL query and formulate a final response for the user. The MCP server instructs the agent to complete the workflow as a final cleanup step. This checks the credentials back into the vault, triggering scripts that will automatically rotate the password so that the retrieved credentials are no longer usable. These scripts will also run if the workflow passively expires, so credentials will still be rotated even if the agent crashes or malfunctions. In either case, the agent will need to request the credentials once again the next time that they're needed, ensuring a human is always in the loop.